Tom Whalen sitting in for Aaron Rand this afternoon on Montreal Now. And joining me in the studio is a gentleman by the name of Patrice Brunet. Patrice is an immigration lawyer. And Patrice, today we're going to talk about sort of a record year last year for U.S. border services going through people's phones and laptops. Is that right?
That's right, Tom. In 2025, they went through over 55,000 electronic devices searches.
So what's the big cause of concern, do you think, for why this big step up?
Well, cause for concern maybe to USCBP, which is the immigration services for the U.S. or for citizens or for us, because we're all subject to that. When you cross the border to the U.S., a U.S. immigration officer can search your devices. They can ask for your password. They can look through your files. They could look through your contacts. They even look through your social media and the comments you may make on social media, either liking, disliking, taking position for or against, let's say, the Minnesota events.
Yeah. Wow. So they've always had the right to do this. This has been something that's nothing new as far as...
you're always vulnerable when you cross borders. You're not subject to the same rights and protection as you are, under the Charters of Rights and Freedom, or in the U.S., the Constitution. And it should be so, because, borders are places where officers should be able to verify for matters such as counterterrorism, child exploitation, drug, human trafficking, and immigration fraud. Those are the four main subjects. But what we've seen over the past year or so is that the immigration officers in the U.S., I haven't seen it on the Canadian side, but in the U.S., where they go much deeper and they search your devices more. Well, there's an increase in the number of searches, but also they go deeper in what they can in the subject and in the content.
So you mentioned a couple of things that they end up looking for, like looking at your comments on social media and stuff like that. But what do you think really is the target? What are they looking for?
I think one of the things is that they want to send a message that anybody wanting to enter the U.S. is not subject to the same rights as a citizen. Okay. And that being said, U.S. citizens are also being searched, but to a much lesser volume. I think they had about 13,000 searches in 2025 of U.S. citizens
at our border.
Entering the U.S. Whether it's the U.S.-Canada border, or if you're flying in from Europe and elsewhere. But in 2025, I'm going to give you a really interesting number. There were over 55,000 searches of electronic devices, only 5,000 of them with reasonable suspicion. So they don't even have to justify why they're searching your devices.
It's random.
It's random. It's based maybe on your looks, or maybe you're number 24th in line.
I was going to say a numbers game.
Yeah. So you have to be careful on what you have on your devices, but also the type of devices that you have. I have some clients who will travel with a flip phone. They'll leave their iPhone at home, and they'll only have a flip phone so that people can contact them by phone. Right. Obviously, you don't have access to your email and all your other social media. Like that. Maybe a tip also is some of my clients will do, that's very rare. They will FedEx their laptop overnight ahead of time to an address in the U.S. So if you have a meeting in New York, you FedEx overnight, and hopefully it gets there on time and it's delivered on time.
The risk you're running there is that the border service agents in the airport where it happens to land could flag it and decide to take a look at it.
Right, but the risk is almost nil, because you're not traveling with it. You won't have access to the password, and unless there's reason for search, they won't go through that trouble. So one of the tricks is to send that by private messenger.
So what's a traveler's rights when they're crossing the border and that agent says to you, give me your phone, give me your laptop? At that point, do you really have any rights, or?
You don't have any rights. No, that's the bottom line. One thing you have to understand, though, is that a land border is not the same as an airport border.
Oh, so what are the big differences?
Right. So when you're at Trudeau Airport here, and that's called pre-flight inspection, PFI. Yeah. You're not on American territory. You're in Dorval. You're in Canada, right? So the immigration officer cannot detain you, and they cannot force you to hand over your devices if you remove your request for admission to the U.S. So if it goes too far, you can just say, well, I'm not going to take my plane. I'm just doing a 180. I'm going back home. Yeah. And there's nothing they can do because they don't have the power to detain. Right. If you're at the land port of entry, at La Colle, for example, then they can detain. You're on U.S. soil.
You're already in the U.S.
So they can seize whatever you have on you. So, that's the main distinction, legal distinction between those two ports of entry.
I was always under the impression that when you go through that border point at Dorval, let's say, and you're approved, go to your gate. You can cry. I thought as soon as you're past that point and you walk by that Statue of Liberty and the American flag that they have there, that you're in the U.S. for all intents and purposes.
Well, diplomatically and legally, you're not, but you're in a secure zone of the airport where the flights are pre-cleared as if they are domestic flights to enter the U.S. So you're not going to be subject to any further investigation before, because of obviously if you've gone through pre-flight inspection, you're going to land in New York City, for example, and you're being treated as a incoming flight as if it was coming from the U.S. domestically. But no, legally you're still, if at the check-in gate you're doing something egregious and you stab someone, God forbid, then it's the Montreal police who's going to arrest you. It's not the U.S. police who's going to come in.
Okay. Now, we're getting close to news, and I just have one. I have lots more questions, but one more for you just before we get there. Does having a Nexus card make any difference when you're crossing?
No, it doesn't make a difference. Of course, you're less subject to scrutiny, but the immigration officer always has the authority to ask you questions, to search, and if he finds something, then you may lose your Nexus card. A Nexus card is really a trusted travelers program. You're pre-trusted, but there's a lot of cases where people have lied and they've tried to smuggle some goods and they've lost their Nexus card. Right. But it doesn't give you any additional privilege.
I see. Okay, well, is there anything I didn't mention that maybe you wanted to mention before we go?
Well, I mean, the question here is really where is the line being drawn? Traveling to the U.S. is always a choice unless you have family, but I think that we have to be very careful, and especially in Canada. I mean, we can't control what happens south of the border, but in Canada, we have to make sure that the rights that we have as Canadians do not get eroded just because you're at the land port of entry, or at a port of entry. The immigration officers will always and should always have extended rights to search and to question. But I think that there's a red line that it shouldn't cross, such as looking at your political opinions on your devices.
Right. Good point. Well, thank you for taking the time this afternoon, and I appreciate you coming in. That's Patrice Brunet. He's an immigration lawyer, and by the sounds of things, a pretty darn good one, too. Thank you. Thank you for your advice, Patrice.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.